August 15th marks Dia Nacional del Cine Mexicano, the National Day of Mexican Cinema, which, as you might guess, celebrates the contributions of Mexican films, directors, and actors to the world of cinema. And you can join in the celebration simply by saying Latino into your voice remote to access our Xfinity Editors curated collection of Mexican cinema, including dozens of critically acclaimed modern films like Bardo and I Dream in Another Language, beloved Golden Age classics like Cuando los Hijos se van and La Barraca, and a collection of complete films available on YouTube. And in honor of Dia Nacional del Cine Mexicano, each of us chose a film by our favorite Mexican director. And I will actually kick us off by revealing that I couldn't choose just one movie by my favorite Mexican director, Mr. Robert Rodriguez. First is the movie that put Robert Rodriguez on the map, his feature-length debut, El Mariachi. This 1992 Spanish-language film follows a traveling musician who is mistaken for a ruthless assassin and suddenly finds himself embroiled in a bullet-ridden gang war. El Mariachi was actually shot on a budget of only $7,225 and stars mostly inexperienced amateur cast of performers. However, Columbia Pictures loved the film so much that they bought the rights to the movie and spent an additional $200,000 to bolster the production value, and I think like $1 million to actually market it. It made $2 million at the box office, so ended up being a pretty good bet. Robert Rodriguez would go on to make 2 sequels to El Mariachi, the first being 1995's Desperado, in which he recast the lead role with Antonio Banderas as the mariachi and Salma Hayek as his love interest. And then the second is the 2003 film Once Upon a Time in Mexico, which added Johnny Depp to the cast as an eyeless CIA agent. Literally, he has no eyeballs. Collectively, the films are known as the Mexico trilogy, and they are very, very good. But I also wanted to take a moment to acknowledge and celebrate one of Robert Rodriguez's lesser known films, because I love this story. It's the 1994 made-for-TV movie Road Racers, starring David Arquette and Salma Hayek. Here's the deal on this. In 1994, Showtime launched a 10-week series of 1950s drive-in inspired B-movies entitled Rebel Highway. The series included movies starring Alyssa Milano, Julie Bowen, Paul Rudd, Anne Heche, Renee Zellweger, Howie Mandel, Adrian Brody, Shannon Doherty, Jared Leto, Alicia Silverstone, Tracy Lords, Matt LeBlanc, and like a who's who of 1990s stars. Each director was given a budget of around $1 million and only 12 days to shoot their films. And Robert Rodriguez actually replaced Wes Craven, who dropped out of the project to direct Wes Craven's New Nightmare. But Road Racers starred David Arquette as a rebellious 1950s greaser named Dude Delaney, who dreams of becoming a rockabilly star but finds himself embroiled in a feud with the local sheriff played by a very excellent William Sadler. The movie also stars future Oscar nominee John Hawkes as Dude's best friend Nixer and Salma Hayek as Dude's girlfriend Donna. And it was actually this movie that ultimately led Robert Rodriguez to cast Salma Hayek in her breakout role in Desperado. So in retrospect, it's like kind of fitting that Robert ultimately joined forces with Quentin Tarantino to create that grindhouse double feature in 2007, because Road Racers is absolutely an ode to that genre and one of his best films. It's a great time, so highly recommend it. End of rant.
Yeah, you did your homework, David.
Very much so.
So I've interviewed Robert Rodriguez on 3 different occasions, and one of them was for like a random DVD release of Road Racers, and we talked for literally an hour on the phone where he gave me the entire backstory of how this movie was made, talked about how he actually strapped himself to the hood of a car to handhold a camera to shoot David Arquette through the windshield. Like, one of the things I love about Robert Rodriguez is that dude doesn't throw money at problems. He just solves it by strapping himself literally his body to the hood of a car. And he like really prides himself on that. And I think it's just really interesting when a director finds creative ways to solve problems instead of just spending money. So he's also like the nicest dude too, and very giving as an interview subject. So I'm a big nerd for Robert Rodriguez. That's it. Maddie, tell us about your movie and your director.
I wish I had the opportunity to interview my director 3 times as you did, because I hear he's a fantastic interview. But I'm probably going with the most well-known Mexican filmmaker at the moment in Guillermo del Toro. And my personal favorite film from him is Crimson Peak. Guillermo has a ton of credits to his name, director, producer. He's appeared in movies. But the first time I really became aware of his work was in his film, The Shape of Water, which won Best Picture at the Oscars in 2018. And he also took home the Best Director award for that film as well. And that was like a bizarre film. It didn't really work for me, but I think that was the case for a lot of people. But it made me cognizant and aware of his work. So then this past year, I did a mini Del Toro deep dive. And I watched Nightmare Alley, one of his most recent films. I watched his version of Pinocchio, which I thought was great. His Cabinet of Curiosities series on Netflix. And finally, Crimson Peak, which I loved. This movie is very in line with the fantastical elements that are featured in much of his work. And it stars 3 of my favorite actors in Mia Wasikowska. I think I'm pronouncing that right. If anyone knows, let me know if I have it wrong. Jessica Chastain and Tom Hiddleston. This movie is a true horror romance, which is, I think, a really untapped genre. Outside of maybe Bones and All from this past year, I can't really think of a horror romance that I've seen that I've liked as much as Crimson Peak. And this is where Del Toro shines, right? This heartfelt but unsettling genre that he loves to work within. If you haven't seen it and need a reason to watch, Mia Wasikowska's character gets romantically swept away by Tom Hiddleston's character, and she leaves to live with him and his sister, Jessica Chastain, in this Gothic-type estate, which kind of looks like the blueprint for the Haunted Mansion ride at Disney World. If you've ridden that ride, it's the same type deal. She quickly begins to grow weak. She's visited by ghosts and plagued by nightmares. And as things unfold, she starts to question her husband and his sister and who they really are and what they're all about. I'll leave it at that because this is a wild story, twists and turns. It's definitely worth checking out. And this is why I also have complete faith in him taking over his version of Frankenstein. He's set to direct that movie, which doesn't have a release date yet, but it has great actors on board to star in Oscar Isaac, Andrew Garfield, and Mia Goth, who I love. I love all 3 of them, but I'm in the Mia Goth hive. I think she is fantastic. So I'm happy to celebrate Guillermo del Toro on this National Day of Mexican Cinema.
Maddie, did you mention Pan's Labyrinth?
I did not, because I've never seen it, and I can't believe you're exposing me, because
Sorry.
I just wanted to breeze right over the fact that I haven't seen that movie.
That's like really, I mean, that's my favorite. I think it's a lot of people's favorite because it was his first and probably most well known. But
yeah, and that falls in the same spiel, right? Like very creepy, right?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah, a lot of like fantastical creatures, and I think even a lot of practical special effects, like the dude with the eyeballs in his hands, like they did all of that. I feel like you love that movie.
I should have hit that on my deep dive, and I didn't, but I got nothing but time, so I'll check it out.
All right.
One thing I love, one thing I love, I always want to mention, as we're like conversating, between these Mexican directors, is that between each director, I think I'm gonna say the same thing for mine, that these directors are like true to the craft of filmmaking, and whether it's figuring out creative ways to overcome a problem or being just a master at a particular type of genre, you can tell these folks really do their work, do their homework, and have so much respect for filmmaking that the finished product is something that you typically just don't experience, with a lot of other filmmakers, especially today. I feel like these filmmakers, they're like one of the lost generations of like true filmmaking, that they have a passion for it and something that can't be like recreated by AI.
Yeah, I mean that's perfect example is Del Toro's Pinocchio, which was stop motion, which I assume took years to make, was released at the same time as Disney came out with their kind of animated, what that is, animated but not version of Pinocchio. And I believe one was nominated for an Oscar and the other wasn't. So that's a really good point, Quam.
Yeah. Goods, they value as Quam, as you said, the craft of filmmaking, but also good storytelling. All of these directors know how to tell a story. And it's a perfect segue into you, Quam, telling us who you picked. Bring us home.
Well, thank you, David, for that awesome segue. And if I had known that I could pick multiple movies, I would have. David
I cheated,
drew outside the lines there. But I had to go with one of my favorite movies of all time by Alfonso Cuarón, which is Gravity. This is such a great movie. Gravity tells the story of Ryan Stone, played by Sandra Bullock. Ryan is up in space, so there's actually no gravity. And she's fixing a telescope when her and her crew find themselves in the direct path of wild debris flying over at speeds over 100 miles per hour. So it's like debris flying, things are getting crazy. Her crew is killed almost instantly as the debris, it strikes their spacecraft and them. And Ryan has to find her way back on Earth, as she's in the, I don't know what part of the atmosphere she's in, but I guess the stratosphere or maybe right above. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I'm not up there. I'm not an astronomer. But the movie is so great because it has an incredible story about overcoming adversity. And Maddie, I wanted to relate this back to your point of you just laying over and dying because zombies are there. You got to overcome adversity, okay? As zombies are the new adversity, you got to figure out how to overcome it. And like Maddie, Ryan doesn't have much to live for at the start of the movie.
Well, hang on. I have a lot to live for. I didn't say that. All right,
well, I'm talking about Maddie in zombie world, Maddie. Not Maddie currently has a lot to live for. She's lit.
Thanks for clarifying, Quam.
Sorry. Ryan, like zombie Maddie, is just going through the motions of life. When this, crazy tragedy happens, this catastrophe, and she's to figure out her way back home. And it'd be so easy for her, like zombie Maddie, to just roll over and die, but she doesn't. She fights and claws her way back to Earth. And even the metaphor of debris being like the manifestation of, adversity always coming back around. It's just like amazing storytelling. It's amazing. Just what's that word? It's not a metaphor, but it's like symbolism, motif, if you will. The movie is excellent, and I kind of spoiled it, but it's also just a great movie if you haven't seen it. The directing is just top notch. I am such just a lover of long takes and just unbroken shots, and Alfonso is just known for that, and he does it so often within Gravity. In certain scenes, you want to talk about like just next level filmmaking, go look at the behind the scenes of the making of Gravity, how they had to, one, just make it look like you're in space, and the art of being like, weightless and that whole ordeal, because there's not a lot of CGIs being used there. They had to like strap Sandra Bullock to a crane and fly her around, and it's such a unique experience, and you don't really think about it as you're watching it because you're just like so enthralled into the movie, but you're like, hold up, how did you even shoot this? Like, how is this even physically possible? And it really just, again, to my earlier point, it just makes filmmaking such an art form, and it's something that you just have to see. And I already mentioned that I find it hilarious the movie's called Gravity when there's like actually no gravity. It should be called like Zero Gravity. And yeah, I love this film. Also want to shout out Children of Men by Alfonso Cuarón, because David had a movie. Children of Men, great movie. I will not spoil anything in that movie. It's amazing. It has an awesome long shot as well. And another favorite movie of mine, The Revenant by Alejandro Inarritu. I hope I pronounced his name correctly. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite movies, which also has another long shot, and also is just a masterclass in filmmaking because they shot all that with this natural lighting, which is, if you ever done filmmaking, that's so freaking hard to do, especially that they did it at different times of the day, at different parts of the season. It just filmmaking masterclass all around. So those are my three movies.
I am so glad you mentioned Children of Men. With respect to Gravity, Children of Men is one of, hands down, the best movies of the last, like, I don't even know if I guess it's within the last 20 years. I don't remember the release date
I think
for it.
2006. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's one of the best sci-fi movies ever made, ever. And so good. It's a masterclass in cinema and storytelling. And you're right, can't spoil anything because, it's so damn good.
It's like one of those movies. It's like you're right. It's sci-fi, but it's like realistic sci-fi. It's like,
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this could definitely be a possibility type of sci-fi. Not like, oh, aliens are coming down from, the cosmos.
Right. Yeah. It's a different kind of sci-fi, but all excellent picks. Thank you so much for sharing all of your insights. And you can all check out El Dia Nacional del Cine Mexicano collection now by saying Latino or what to watch into your Xfinity voice remote.